to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Cole?
Here.
Councilmember Schwer?
Here.
Councilmember Wong?
Here.
Councilmember Nordby?
Here.
Mayor Monge?
Here. Thank you. I have a motion to adopt the agenda, please.
So moved.
So move. Councilmember Swear.
Second.
Second. Councilmember Norby. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Consent agenda, would you go through, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, first up on the consent agenda, item A, November 21st, 2023 workshop minutes. Item B, November 21st, 2023 regular meeting minutes. Item C, general claims of $617,359.03. Item D, HRA claims of $493.68. Item E, Target Corporation gift card donation, Shop with the Cop. Item F, 2024 City Council meeting calendar. Item G, 2024 annual polling place designation. Item H, authorized application for Metropolitan Council Environmental Services 2024 private property grant program. Item I, 2024 pavement management project professional services proposal. City project number 24-01 from WSB. Item J, 11th Avenue Sidewalk Improvement Project, City Project Number 24-2, Professional Services Proposal by WSB.
Thank you. Anybody like to pull any?
Yes, I'd like to pull item H, item I, and item J.
H, I, and J. I can go over. Anybody else? If we take those out, we can, somebody motion so we can pass the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
So move, Councilmember Swear. Second. Second, Councilmember Cole. All those in favor say aye. Aye. That's usually my sticking point. I forget that part, so I'm doing all right. All right. Next part is. Oh, we're going to do it after? I'm so sorry. Sit down. I said you're open to the public. All right. At
Remember my first council meeting.
6:32, open to the public. John Schmal, please. 3 minutes, please. Good evening.
Evening, John Schmall, 2750 Chisholm. I was about to stick my foot out and trip him.
Yeah, I'm first, you should have said.
Anyway, again, the subject that I just harp on constantly, but at least two people at the last meeting or workshop agreed with the situation. Well, Morgan said you've got different rates for different usage of water based on a requirement of the DNR. And that the more you use, the more you pay, and the idea is conservation. Very important subject, conservation. And Councilmember Wong agreed with that particular situation as the way it should be. Councilmember Cole did not. So conservation is not in his lexicon. Anyway, since that time, there was another story in the St. Paul Pioneer Press, and this time is water usage that is going to be used to grow more corn so they can have fuel for commercial aircraft. And it's going to require the usage of 100% more water to grow 100% more corn. Anyway, the idea is we must conserve. It is not a bottomless pit. And in another one, 2 weeks ago, the city manager of Lake Elmo was cashiered over their subject, basically, of water for a new school. Water is very important, and you can't get people to realize how important it is without having them informed on their water bill that there are 3 rates that apply. And the more that you use, the higher your bill is going to be. And that bill should indicate that. So people in this city will realize what conservation is all about. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody online, Carrie? I'm sorry? Oh, Jenny, I'm sorry. No, there is not. Okay, thank you. All right, I'll close the meeting at 6:35. Now it's truth. Are we going to go that way? Okay, go ahead.
Public hearing, truth and taxation hearing, 2024 tax levy and budget. And we'll turn that over to our finance director, Dan Winnick.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor, council members. Tonight is the 2024 Truth and Taxation hearing. Every year I put together this PowerPoint presentation, and I keep saying, you know, it's way too long. I got to cut it down, and I never am able to do that. I think I cut out maybe about one slide out of it. Part of the reason I know it's a curse of a finance director, all of the information in here is really good. I know it's kind of boring, but it's really good. So I'm not going to try to go through absolutely every single slide. I am going to hit some highlights on some of the different slides so we can get through there, and hopefully if there's public comment regarding the truth and taxation and the levy that the city council has proposed, that we can hear from questions and answers from the residents. But I kind of want to talk about you know, this 2024 budget process before we go into the truth and taxation. And you know, before we started this process, I sat down with the city manager, and the goal, and you've heard me say it before, I'll say it maybe a little bit differently right now, but it was to be inclusive, to be transparent, and to tell the complete story, bad or good. And I think we've done that. And then on our levy kickoff, our preliminary levy kickoff with the city council, there was a phrase that was used by multiple city council members that has stuck with me throughout this budget process, and I think is very, very true of what the city council has accomplished in this budget, in this levy increase. And that was, don't kick the can down the road. And what that means is that this may be a one-year budget, but it has impacts on multiple years to come. And there's 3 new members on the city council, so this is your first time through the truth and taxation hearing as being a decision maker. And it's very important that you understood and you heard from us as we went through this budget process some of the decisions that were made in the past and some of the implications that they have had. I'm just going to give 2 quick examples. When you do a 0% levy and you achieve that 0% levy by cutting staff, eventually, if you truly need those staff to provide extraordinary service to the city, you're going to have to add them back, and when you add them back, you're going to have to increase your property taxes. Well, we saw that occur in both 22 budget and this current 23 budget. And the 24 budget here, you had to address some of the decisions that were made differently. And I'm not saying they were bad or they were good decisions. I'm just saying the decisions that were made. One in particular, special assessments. To do away with special assessments for your streets means that you need to generate some revenue source to be able to adequately take care of your streets. You've got something in this budget that, you know, to propose to be able to do that. You're dedicating 2% of the levy increase to start taking care of the streets. All I can say is kudos to all of you for making those tough decisions. This budget process started with the department heads submitting their budgets. There were meetings with each and every one of the department heads. This marks the 12th meeting that we've had with City Council on the budget. You take this stuff seriously, and that's what's important. We've had input from all the commissions, Arts and Culture, Planning, Parks and Recreation, EDA, and the HRA. We've provided for total transparency, line item details. We've provided 10-year financial plans. We've done budget narratives, budget summaries. And so with that, we're going to quickly go through the truth and taxation presentation. And kind of want to jump to this third page. If you're looking in the actual documentation, it was page 55 of 156, and that why do property taxes change? There's changes in market values. That's not underneath the city of North St. Paul's control. that if you have questions with your market values, you need to talk to the assessor's office in Ramsey County. Levies of various jurisdictions. We control North St. Paul. We don't control the rest of them. We don't control Ramsey counties. We don't control the school district. We don't control the other taxing authorities that are within this property tax in this unique taxing authority for North St. Paul. Debt issuance, we do control. We're not issuing any new debt. Special assessments, we're not issuing any special assessments. We don't have any voter-approved referendums. Changes in state federal mandates, there have been some. Changes in aid and revenue from state and federal governments, there's been some. And state legislative changes. We don't control those. We were fortunate enough to get a little bit more in the local government aid this past year that you're all aware of. Again, I'm trying to highlight some of them so I don't take too much of your time. But all property owners should have receipt of a truth in taxation notice, and that'll show you what the changes are from the 2023 tax to the 2024 tax. On an actual property tax statement that's pretty close to what our median value increase was, taxpayers are going to see an overall 12.78% increase in their property taxes from 23 to 2024. 14% is due to Ramsey County. 13.5% is due to the city of North St. Paul. 10% is due to the school district. Approximately 3% is due to metro special taxing districts, and 27.8% is due to other taxing authorities that fall within this unique taxing district. Here's a graph that kind of shows the breakdown of taxing authorities. Of a tax bill, 34.5% goes to Ramsey County, 31.2% goes to the school district, and approximately 30% goes to the city of North St. Paul. Values have changed. Values have gone up. Values on the median value home have increased approximately 9.2%. Values overall, including commercial and industrial, have increased about 8.5%. Again, when values change, if residential increases more than commercial property, there becomes a property tax shift. In other words, if you ask for the exact same amount of levy, the actual tax burden shifts over to the type of property that has a higher value increase. And so we do see that the residential market is growing faster than the commercial market. And so there is a tax burden shift that ends up going over to the residents. Some of our 2024 levy highlights, the proposed budget in which the truth and taxation statements was based on represented a city levy increase of 8.5%. That's $557,000 in levy increase from 2020 through in 2023. This includes both the general fund and the debt services. The average for the cities and towns in Ramsey County is a little over 10%. And you remember, part of our 3% is dedicated towards infrastructure. So 5.5 is covering increases due to inflation, cost of living increases due to the unions that have negotiated as far as salaries, and any increases in benefits. So the 5.5% is really not all that bad. The additional 3%, 2% goes to streets, 0.55% will go to parks, and 0.45% of the levy will go to facilities. We also have the HRA levy that's going to increase $11,000, and there's no change in the EDA levy. Budget highlights. I think that we've accomplished the important objectives of the budget to focus on the basic city services and funding these activities adequately. We focused on public safety, focused on appropriate staffing levels to deliver extraordinary services, demonstrate a commitment to existing infrastructure and proactive repair and replacement, and adhere to a balanced budget. In the 2024 levy, we have 2 additional full-time staff, and there was negotiations and some strategy with those. We're increasing in both of the increases for staffing are really in our public safety areas. One's a police investigator, but in the meantime, we're also reducing one of the part-time community service officers to offset some of that cost. We're also taking, and we're going to add a full-time fire code compliance officer. We're going to reduce from the budget 2 part-time code compliance officers. And then we're going to be increasing the on-call firefighters' pay $1.50 per hour to get closer to what the region pays the on-call firefighters. And then again, as I've already mentioned, we got a 3% going to streets, and then parks and facilities. Again, and for full disclosure, you've seen this levy component before. In the past, we've shown everything on the levy components all in the general fund, and then we were going to do transfers to street maintenance, park, and building maintenance. We're not going to do that. We're going to put the levies directly in the street maintenance, park, and building maintenance. So we show full disclosure of actually where and what makes up our levy. And so our general fund levy will be increasing $284,000 of that $557,000, or 5.56%. If you look at our revenues by category, you're going to see we have a high dependency on property taxes, 56%, followed by intergovernmental revenue of 19%. What makes up intergovernmental revenue? Local government aid, fire aid, police aid. Expenditures by category, you're going to see 64% goes to personnel costs. That's the bigger driving factor to it. As far as departments are concerned, police is our biggest, followed by fire and code enforcement. Those 2 public safety functions represents 58% of our budget, and then followed by street maintenance. So you can see public safety has been something that the City Council has really backed in making sure that our residents are safe and secure. Our debt levy from the 2 years really haven't changed a great deal. We have to start paying on the 2020A general obligation tax increment refund bonds. So that's really the driving factor that's starting to increase, the debt from up to $75,000 from 2023 in the levy. If you remember, part of our 10-year financial plan, where we're increasing the levy for the streets, is basically to keep this levy, debt levy, stagnant at the same level for the next 10 years, even though we will be issuing debt in the odd years beginning in 2025 and then again in 2027. We have some debt that will be retiring. We will hold the levy the same, but in that way we'll be able to fund the financial plan for the streets that we had proposed. Comes down to the big thing, and it's what's the impact on our taxpayers with this 8.5 levy increase. If there would have been no property value change, that 8.5% levy increase would still result in a 1.3% increase. Why is that? It's because in 2023, the market values for residential, on average, increased about 15%. We had a total levy of about 12.8. So what ends up happening is it's that fiscal disparities component to it, that our actual tax rate actually dropped, which then ends up holding everything constant, we get less dollars from the fiscal disparities pool back. And remember, the city of North St. Paul is a winner as far as fiscal disparities is concerned. But very few properties had a 0% value increase. So let's take a look at that median value increase of approximately 9.2% with that 8.5. It's going to result in an increase for our taxpayers of $137 on an annual basis, a little less than 12% increase. So when we had our budget kickoff, one of the questions that asked the city council is, what's your levy target? The reason for that, you know the reason for it, but I want our residents to know that too. And the reason for that is because for every 1% of an increase on this median value, it equates to $14 for our residents. So when you're taking that look at it, you're saying, hey, this is kind of where the affordability line is going to be, and it gives staff direction to build a budget that is going to be comparable or somewhere in that range. And again, I think that we've done that, and I think that we've been able to really accomplish a lot of great things moving forward, especially with some of the past decisions. And again, that's really the focus on the infrastructure in 2024. And again, HRA and EDA, HRA's levy increases 11,000, EDA does not increase at all. It stays the same as it was in 2023. There is some additional information that's put into this truth in taxation presentation, kind of shows you all of the cities and towns that are in Ramsey County and what their levies are that were proposed. And you can see North St. Paul is a little lower than the middle point, and again below the overall average that we're seeing in cities and towns. This information here just kind of shows, and I've highlighted North St. Paul. What it's showing is that of our 3,700 parcels, 1,500 will see an increase in the range of 0 to 10% in their property taxes, and this is total property tax change, not just including North St. Paul, but all the other taxing jurisdictions, and approximately 1,400 will see a 10 to 20% increase. Again, there's some information in the back for our residents that if they have questions regarding their valuations or property classes, that it's really to contact the county assessors. And then the state provides some programs for senior citizens property tax deferrals. And then reminding everybody to make sure that they have homestead deadlines. And then there's some exclusion programs that they need to be aware of. I think I did that pretty quick. There's a lot of good information that's in there. But before I go to questions and comments and ask for any first questions from City Council, and then if there's any public, the real thing is I'm really proud of what the City Council has accomplished. We've met quite a few times. We've had some very good conversations. There was really some tough history learning, but you've made some fantastic decisions and some very tough decisions, and so I'm very proud of you for that and being a part of this organization. And I want to give a lot of credit to our city manager for giving me direction in this budget process. So I will take any questions that our city council will have first.
I turned it off for that. Thank you for the report and to your staff for everything. I've learned a lot. This is my first year, of course, being new mayor. And the biggest part I learned was the intergovernmental and the disparity, the fiscal. I didn't understand that if you did a 0% levy, then you would lose money on the other end of it, where it's, I guess, best way to explain it is if you put in, the state will put in with you, but if you don't, they're not going to. Is that correct?
It doesn't come from the state. It comes from the rest of the metro
Sorry,
area.
the other metro area.
Yeah. Based upon their
So yeah, that was
commercial
something
growth.
I didn't know anything about until we got through this process where you did that. So it was very enlightening to understand how things work. So thank you for your report. Nothing else?
I agree with being this as a new council member, this being my first year understanding all of this. I appreciate everything that you put together. Mary Kay, you guys are wonderful in all the meetings that you have attended or have created for us, and we attended and asked all the questions. Thank you for everything.
Thank you. Yes, Mary Kay is absolute fantastic addition to the city. Not saying that I'm ready to hang up my finance director title at this point in time. You never know, someday I might. But I hopefully she will be the next finance director for the city. Part of why I say that and why it's important is because in the time that I've been here, there has been so much change. Change in city council, change in our city manager. And, you know, before I came here, you had to change in finance directors. When you have that change, you lose some of the history and the continuity of what's moving forward. And it's very important that we have those 10 years financial plans and we have the commitment to making those become a reality to make sure that the city is in the best position that it can be. And so the person who's behind me, who's helped a great deal in all of these presentations and putting this information, is by far smarter than I am, and will be a great successor and will be able to carry on moving this city from a financial standpoint in the right direction.
Thank you.
Do we have any public comments or from any citizens, whether in attendance or online?
Is there anybody that would like to speak? If not, just the usual name and 3 minutes, please.
John Schwal, 2750 Chisholm Avenue. In looking over the, whatever this is that we work from, the presentation, this budget, I've attended every one of the budget meetings. And this budget that you have here is not what was spoken about and agreed to at these budget meetings. There are no transfers in. There must be another budget somewhere. Is there another budget somewhere of the total revenues and expenditures? Because I don't see anything here about transfers in. That's a question.
That's,
An answer to that is that the truth in taxation is about the property taxes, and the property taxes talks about levy. And the levy is the general fund, including city operations and the debt. And it also includes the EDA and the HRA. Those transfers that I believe that you speak about, because there are transfers that are in this budget, because historically every enterprise fund has transferred money to the general fund, and you'll see that $820,000 is still in the budget. So there are transfers in this budget. But I think the one that you're talking about would be showing up in a special revenue in the enterprise funds.
So I could ask for the real budget?
this is the levy budget that he's doing right
This,
now.
this is
But
the,
I could ask for the real budget, because this does not match with what I have seen by attending the budget meetings. And if you want to know specifically, the $1.2 million taken from the Electric Enterprise Fund because of what the finance director said in a meeting, where did it come from? We charged too much. So there is a budget somewhere that has a $1.2 million transfer in, and that is dedicated to something. Is that a correct statement on my part?
partially, it's a $1.1 million transfer instead of 1.2. Well, let's be correct on things. And again, it'll show up in the enterprise fund and a special revenue for the street maintenance. And the city council, at the next city council meeting, will be approving all budgets, and all budgets will be shown at that point in time. This is, again, the truth in taxation, where we talk about the levy and the impact of what residents had seen as far as their truth in taxation, statement, and what the levy impact will be on a property tax.
Oh, it would be nice to know, as part of this, that you have in this presentation is not the true city budget,
It is the true city budget, yes, it is.
based on income from the levy, but not from transfers in.
This is the true city budget.
I guess we'll just have to agree to disagree.
We certainly can, and again, next city council meeting, all of the budgets will be presented at that point in time, just like you've seen them, and they haven't changed since the time that you've seen in other meetings.
Yeah, truth in taxation hearing is what this was for tax levy and budget.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right.
All right, city business action items.
Mr. Mayor, or Brian, if I can just,
Excuse me.
so we did, that was the public hearing and it was opened, Mr. Mayor, is that
I'll close it.
correct? Yeah, if there's nobody else, if we want to close the
All
hearing,
right, if there's nobody
just to
else.
clarify.
Thank you. I'll close it at 7:01. Thank you.
All right, city business action items and recommendations. Item A is building official contract with Rum River Consulting. Turn that over to Brandy, our Community Development Director.
Mayor and City Council, as you probably are aware, the city has been contracting its building official and building inspection services with Minspect since 2018. Our contract with Minspect expires at the end of the month, 2023. In keeping with the purchasing policy and with council's directive to evaluate service providers through a competitive process, staff issued an RFP for inspection services in September of this year. That RFP was advertised on the city's website, the League of Minnesota Cities, via direct email to a contact list as well. We received 2 proposals. One was from Minspect and the other was from Rum River Consultants. Our evaluation process included review by 5 staff members, which included the fire chief, the assistant fire chief, finance director, myself, and a customer service assistant. Both firms were brought in for in-person interviews and reference checks were completed. We also evaluated the overall contract of each and the fee schedules of each organization. In addition to that fee review, we completed reference checks for both companies and Rum River from several of their client communities as well. Excuse me. After a thorough review of both proposals, we recommend moving forward with the contract with Rum River. Overall, during the interview process and in follow-up conversations, their staff was thoroughly impressive. We were impressed with their level of professionalism, their attention to detail, and customer service that they presented. It is our hope and expectation that this change will result in improved customer service, better communication and collaboration between the inspections team and city staff, and an overall streamlined permitting process. Staff is now recommending that we enter into a contract with Rum River Construction Consultants beginning in January 1st with an ongoing annual renewal if approved by City Council. A contract is in the council packet, and this has been reviewed by staff and city attorney. Any questions for me regarding that?
Any questions, anyone?
Yeah, so I have some questions based off of an email that I had received, and just questions in regards to some of the documentation. So in the staff memo under discussion section, the 3rd bullet point states that Minspec charges $60 for residential and $90 for commercial inspections. The implication is that they charge a % of the permit fee and also charge for every inspection they perform. The fees in the fee schedule that this information is taken from is for pre-construction site inspections, is what I've been told. So which are performed at our request. So there's discussion that that's not part of the permitting fee, and it's rarely requested by the city.
What is the question there?
My question would be then, they are not part of the permitting fee, or they are?
I'm not privy to the email that you're referring to, so I'm having a little
Yeah.
hard
that's
time
fair.
following the question. So the question is related to the third bullet, inspection fees. Well, this information came from a document that was provided by Rum River as a review of their fees versus the city's fees. So it's possible that there was a misinterpretation by myself of those various fees. Both organizations are in the audience tonight if we wanted a further discussion on that particular point.
It'd be great to have some clarification around that.
I agree. Percentages and that, understand it.
Would you care to come up, please, Carrie? Thank you. I'd like to allow Carrie to introduce herself. She's with Rum River Consulting.
You can pull the mic down if it's, we got a
Thank you.
lot of
I'm
people in the
politically
audience.
Challenged. Good evening, City Council and Mayor. Thank you for inviting us here tonight. Councilmember Wong, your question is related to my understanding of erosion control inspections, the pre-construction site inspections. So I believe that Ms. Howe, on that third bullet point, was referring to the site completion inspection fees. So our proposal, we do not charge any additional fees. Those are part of our process and included within the building permit fee that is charged on building permits, where MinSpec has an additional 60 for residential and 90 for commercial. So the inspection fee that is correct on that third bullet point, it's just for the site inspection. Does that help?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, vote on it. Okay. Want to read the, we're going to vote on?
Let me grab that. Oh, boy. Come on.
So it looks like it says the building the official contract, we're awarding the official contract to Rum River Consulting, is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
That is correct.
Yes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved, Councilmember Swear. Second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Wong. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay? Thank you.
All right, next up is discussion of the park rental policy. I'll turn that back over to Brandy.
You'll recall at the last council meeting, we had a item on there that was the park rental policy update. The Parks Commission, Parks and Recreation Commission rather, reviews that park rental policy annually, and they make recommendations for updates to City Council. This fall, the PRC recommended that several updates be made to that policy, and those include prohibition of several items in the facilities, water balloons, glitter, confetti, and glass containers. Prohibit clarification that smoking is prohibited in park buildings or anywhere within the park. Creating a $150 deposit for events that hold, that host with alcohol, which is in response to significant cleanup costs at the indoor facilities. And clarification that key codes or a key access is required for buildings, and that after-hour access requests would result in additional fee. So if you recall that at council, you considered these changes and requested additional information related to the pavilions and the facility costs specifically. So the staff took a look and ran some reports, and the following table provides rental information for Casey Lake from January through September of 2023. In those 9 months, Casey Lake was rented 133 times with a net rental value of $30,110. And that net value is the total revenue less the cleaning costs. Over that period, we were able to obtain information that there were 7 instances where damage deposits were withheld for a variety of reasons, and a total of $1,675 of deposits was withheld. Some of those reasons included additional cleanup fees, minor damage due to the use of double-sided tape, the need for extra dumpsters, and the failure of the renters to adhere to the park policy, which means that they didn't vacate by 11 o'clock, which is the deadline for leaving. Housey Park, we rented that facility 73 times during that same period. The net rental revenue was $7,340. There was only 1 instance where damage was withheld, a deposit rather, and that was because they did not vacate by 11 o'clock and they did not clean up after the rental was complete. I asked our police chief to investigate whether we had any extraordinary police calls for those 2 facilities, and there were no service calls at Casey Lake to date, and there was 2 for Housey Park. Rental data was also reviewed to determine if there were duplicate rentals under a single name that might signify the occurrence of potential subletting. That was brought up as an issue or of concern at the last meeting. We found that there were 21 individuals that rented a facility more than 1 time per the calendar year. And we found that of those, 2 rented Housey 3 times, 1 rented Casey 3 times, 1 rented Housey 4 times, and all others, they rented a facility just twice. Our finance and public works departments provided the cost estimates for operating and capital costs for Casey Lake and Housey Park, and the table in front of you relates those facility costs. As indicated, the total annual cost for Casey specifically is $127,533, and annual cost for Housey is about $31,000. So when we relate these costs to the rental rate, the total number of rentals that we might have over a calendar year, the total cost of a reservation at Casey Lake would be over $800. If we were to take that same amount and just consider the rental rate without the capital costs, it would be $344. And if we were going to then request to retain the operating plus half of the facility costs, the rental would be $579. And similar figures are shown for Housey Park. Council also asked staff to research other facility rentals. We tried to find as many as we could that had similar capacity. And so what you have on the screen is 49 capacity, which is Housey Park, up to 200 of this, what I'll call the smaller range. The weekend rates range from $300 to $600 for residents, or $350 to $750 for non-residents. For those larger facilities that have capacity of 215 up to 300, the weekend rates for those facilities range from $500 to $1,600 for residents and $625 to $1,820 for non-residents. Other fees also were itemized as kitchen use fees, security after weekends, a larger group fee, and then additional deposit if alcohol is served. So taking all of this information, most specifically that fee related to the facility maintenance and operating costs, we've compiled some options in terms of if we were to change our rates for the two parks, there's a high, two medium options, and a low option. The high option would cover both of the operating and capital costs. Medium A and B provide two mid-rate options that would consider operating costs and a portion of the capital costs. And the low rate would increase the rates just slightly higher than our current rates, but would not fully cover those operating costs. So with that, I'll take any questions, and I can stay here and keep that on the screen if that helps.
Brandy, the officer called Housie Park, was that directly related to a renter, or do we not know?
I don't know that I have that information. The question that I posed to the police chief was what rates were, or sorry, not rates, what police calls were specifically for the facilities. So I think it was probably related to a renter, but I don't have the detail as far as what the issue was or the date.
Thank you.
Can you speak to how you got the 50% or chose the 50% capital cost to cover half, or is that just
That was a
Suggestion?
suggestion by our finance director, and I can defer to him.
Again, the 50%, it could be 30, it could be 70%. We just kind of split it down the middle. What it really tries to represent is that the question that comes to City Council is there some sort of subsidy that that the City Council is comfortable with that would go towards the park rental component to it. So again, there's no exact science why it was 50%.
Thank you for that clarification.
Any other questions? Can you pop on this front screen, control room? Thank you.
Thank you. First, Brandy, I want to thank you. I was the guy that asked all the questions. Thank you for doing this.
You're welcome.
The intent wasn't necessarily to say we need to raise or lower the rent rates. I just wanted to get a better snapshot because it had probably been a year or two since we had looked at any of them. Also interested in just what local, St. Pete's and the Legion, and I think the Legion is $600 a night. So this really truly does help. We are providing one heck of a bargain based off of the chart that's in front of us to our residents. If you look at, the high is 8 and we're basically the low. So I guess that's part of the reason why I wanted to do that. The other piece was I had concern with the reported damages that I had been hearing, the struggles that were taking place with the crew, the cleaning people going in to clean and people not vacating. And I also was of the belief that the park hours closed before the property did during the summer, and I think I caught that in part of this packet that they actually 11 o'clock is when parks close. So I guess that was new news to me. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate doing everything and answering all my questions.
Not a problem.
I guess I want to open this up maybe for a little discussion.
Definitely.
Where's everybody's comfort level? What's going on? I view Casey Lake as a huge asset to the city, a huge asset to the residents. The pavilion is what I'm referencing, the park as well, but the pavilion more specifically. And I just want to make sure that we're taking proper care of it. So I'm not here to suggest we need to raise rates, we need to lower rates, we need to do anything. I just wanted to look a little deeper into where we sat, but we've got the best value on the market.
I echo what you said on that as far as that, but I also would like to be able to get enough where we can put money back into it to keep up with tables and chairs and things, so where it's not just going to be on the taxpayers to be able to do that. So, I would like to see myself as far as being a little bit higher so we can have some of that be put back into the parks themselves in the pavilion. Not maybe at the high level, but towards where there's a percent that goes into it that we can keep for improvements and to take care of things.
Can I ask on the cover page where you have the chart and it has the deposit value withheld and the net revenue? Did the renter, was it often that renters went over the deposit or exceeded that?
I don't know that our record keeping is adequate enough to answer that question. I also don't know that the damage that has occurred I think that would be a question for Public Works or potentially the cleaner. From what I could tell from the information that we had, the quote-unquote damage that was occurring was pretty minor, sticky tape or issues with cleanup primarily. Those were the biggest costs, and I don't think that we ever came to a point where, at least for the last 9 months, where we had to pay out in order to rent the facility, if that's where you're going.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to see,
Yep.
is it something we do have to raise? Is that something to consider? Is also the deposit or what have you?
If I could add, which I haven't said yet, which might be helpful, is our methodology for determining the amount of deposit to withhold has not been really defined. So I think it would be helpful in our policy if we clarified that if you are in violation of any part of the policy, perhaps you get no deposit returned. That may be more strict than what this council would like to work with. Maybe there is a ranking system, but some clarity on when and how much deposit to withhold would be something to consider.
And also, when I look at the numbers too that you had there too, there's not much difference between residents and non-residents as far as the, usually it's quite a bit more when it's a non-resident because we have, as residents, have skin in the game and we're providing that service. So usually, I would think it'd be quite a bit more for a non-resident compared to a resident. That's something I'm concerned about. Because part of our tax dollars go in to take care of our parks.
Sure. So this item is a discussion item. Staff is looking for direction in terms of, are we going to modify the rates? If so, it would be included in our fee schedule for the next council meeting for action.
May I ask you to go back to the slide that you were at with the low, yep.
This slide also has a weekend versus weekday rate suggested for housing, which doesn't currently exist, so that's something else to keep in mind.
Rentals have been open, or reservations have been open for 5 days now.
Correct.
How many do we have in? Or rough?
When was December Friday? So 3 business days.
Are there any in already?
Oh, yes. I think I heard almost all of the summer dates were taken for Casey Lake.
Summer weekend or,
Summer weekends, I'm sorry.
okay, wow.
Okay.
Just today? No, that's from December. Oh,
And they know when they signed up that rates, we had it on the website.
Yep.
Yep. Good, because that's only fair. And they can decide if we do something, if they still want to continue and we can get it done sooner.
Do you know how often weekdays versus weekends are weekends obviously are popular. I'm just wondering if there is a particular rate for the weekday that would, go one way or another depending on how often it's reserved. For example, if it's not super popular on the weekday, are there different, amounts that we can consider to encourage more reservations?
I don't know if I have the answer to that.
Yeah, I'm just kind of broadly, I'm
I
sorry.
mean, we do have a lower rate for the weekdays, and generally weekdays are just less popular.
Yeah.
I think that continuing to have a smaller rate for those days would make sense, what that is.
Can you also go back to the slide where it showed everything janitorial and everything again, if you don't mind?
This one?
Where it's broke out, how much for each department, janitor. There you go, thank you.
Okay, so this is what it costs to maintain the facility.
So, 127,000, you said we had $130,000 worth of, what did your $30,000 worth? What was the amount we
Revenue?
brought in revenue? Yes, I'm sorry.
At 30 something, 33?
30.
But that took the number away from all the expenses, right? That's what we ended up with. Because you said correct, okay. Because I thought you said something about not including expenses and something, okay.
Yeah, so the janitorial expenses in that other slide is separate from any cleaning related to a rental. So we also maintain those facilities and they get cleaned up by the janitor on I think a daily basis as well.
Okay, even inside the building, Casey's open during the day with nobody there?
Do you know the,
Or is there outside bathrooms too, probably?
Yeah, there's
right?
outside bathrooms.
They're inside and outside, or just outside? I can't remember.
You can access them from outside or inside.
Okay, all right. So there's always having a park cost of cleaning the bathrooms and taking care of the park normally, and then this would be on top of the normal stuff.
yep, correct.
Okay, just wanted to be clear on that. And part of it too is I was a little, we have a great staff that cleans here and takes care of and I don't want them to be in the situations where they're acting like, you got to get out type of thing, and that concerns me for them. So how we can help them to be able to make sure we get people out of there when we're supposed to, and there has to be some kind of a consequence. Otherwise, it puts them in not a good spot, in my mind.
I personally like the proposal for the pricing on the low offers, but I'd also like to see our non-residents up at $75. So I see it's a $50 increment. I'd like to see it at 75. That's just a personal opinion.
So for clarity, when you say lower, you're referencing the far
The
right column?
far right-hand column.
Just for knowledge, I very quickly did back of the envelope math. And it looks like the cleaning fee for the facility is about $100 a rental. So when you take a look at a residential weekday of $200, 50% of that is consumed with the cleaning fee. So there's not a lot of money going back in. So I would be inclined to agree with some type of a slight increase, just to help offset some of the rising costs. Do we know the last time we've taken an increase on our rent, on our properties? Random question.
A rate increase on these? I'm sorry, I do not know.
Okay. I think it's been a while.
And when was the building built? You lived there. You lived behind the building, right in the park. I saw you.
A few years ago.
Yeah, so I mean, just like anything else, we're gonna start getting in new tables need to be replaced, and there's other things that are coming up that we need to keep track.
discussing it at PNR last time. I want to say it was 2017.
So we're, that's 6 years, so we're starting to get to where things are gonna need it, so. I'm leaning more towards the middle A myself for residents, and then non-residents, I would go up another $200. Yeah. That's me.
Mayor.
That's why we got so many people up here.
Mayor. Whew.
Oh,
I think for myself, I would look at the low end here, just partly because though people have authenticated that rates could change, that still can be just some dissatisfaction with customer service. Let's just say that. And so I think also just incremental is probably a little bit more I'd say safer at this point, just kind of, and then give us a point to reevaluate from. So I can see the low being a good baseline for us to start.
My personal opinion is I like giving the direction of staff of low with a goal of 2 to 3 years, maybe to be at that medium A, and that we revisit this earlier in the year, next year, September-ish, but this year for low, and then I'm kind of in line with the mayor for that medium A, but not an initial one-time jump.
Yeah, Mayor.
I make you guys look good, so you can say, at least I'm not as bad as the mayor, so, I help out when I can.
As for the cleaning, and maybe this, as for the cleaning, what kind of dumpsters or trash cans are available to those that are renting? Are there any on site before cleaners come, or are they just the blue bins that we have out there?
Just the barrels that are inside.
Okay. And they're typically overflowing? Okay. Yeah. I'm just wondering if that's something small that we can do that doesn't cost too much money, is to put extra bins out there or trash cans. I don't know. It's probably already been done, but
Our janitor service is pretty good about letting us know, and then what she notifies Ron, then they'll go out the next day. They usually put the bags by that, and they'll pick them up the next morning. They're pretty good about communication with that.
okay.
I think any issue with the waste is related to very large events that have happened this summer where we had to bring in dumpsters.
Okay. All right.
I still like to push for the non-resident fee
To be,
to increase.
To
I don't believe $50 is sufficient enough. And at least if that's what I'm looking at down below with the low pricing.
yep, 300 for non-residents, for weekday, 450 for,
Again, us taxpayers are paying for that, like you had indicated, and we're going to have to continue to maintain it. So therefore, I'd like to see it higher than $50.
and for me, someday when we have to do a remodel or do something, then we're not going to have a lot
Right.
of money there for it. So I'm still for mine, so.
Still for medium high.
I absolutely can get behind Cassidy and go for the low with the 75 for the non-resident for this next.
So does that look like $325 for a weekday for a non-resident, and then $475 for a non-resident on the weekend?
You're looking at.
Yes, sorry.
low
I'm trying to
column.
do the math.
Yeah, yeah.
I will tell you, I do not have a math degree, okay?
If we did,
Yes, that does.
Okay.
If we
I
did-
just wanted to clarify.
do low at 250, I'd still like to see it closer to double for non-residents.
For a weekday?
Anyone. Anything they do. So, there.
Mayor, killing me. I'm willing to go 100.
Any high as you can go. I just think there's a value to us. We take, it's our tax dollars, we take care of it, and I think people have to have skin in the game when it comes to using our facilities.
Is
I
that what
don't
the deposit
disagree.
is?
Well, still, providing the service, we built it, and, it's a great deal even at that price, even at,
I don't disagree. However, with Councilmember Wong, some of these folks did already, our summer is nearly booked. No, okay. Thank you, Carrie.
So what do? We got a curmudgeon thing going here or something?
Mayor?
Mayor?
Could continue the discussion at a future date and keep the rates as they are.
Nope.
My opinion.
Yep, we gotta figure it out.
Closure, 'cause we're
Yeah.
just creating a-
I'll work my way down if people work their way up. How is that?
I like the low, and I'm with the 75. I'll agree to a little bit more.
How about 50 or 300? How we go, we do middle B, 300, 375, I'll go there. Even I like to go higher, 375, I still like it closer to,
Weekend rates are getting high. Resident, I don't know. Resident rate, I'm comfortable with low. Non-resident, I guess that's your comfort level. Councilmember Schwer referenced $75. I'm comfortable with a little bit more for a non-resident standpoint. Mayor, if we can,
Yep.
meet in the middle at $100 increase for the.
Yep. We'll meet in the middle for that. And we'll come back to the issue of, because I still think that's low, but like we talked about, start with this, work our way in increments. I can do that.
I agree. It's still, even at the low prices, we still offer quite the value out there. We're now at the low end. We're below the low end as we currently sit.
Sometimes that's
and
not
I-
good renting to
No,
general public.
Right. And Councilmember Norby, I wholeheartedly agree the conversation needs to start sooner than later for next year, so we can have this conversation. It may even actually take place in a workshop as opposed to a council meeting, so we can gain a little better alignment. If we're comfortable on pricing, can we shift gears into damage deposits?
Yep. Perfect.
So
To clarify, if you
non-resident, we boosted up an additional 100, correct?
I thought it was 75.
Well, they were just, Councilmember Cole and Mayor were just talking
We
about
compromised at 100.
They compromised at
You
100.
good with it?
I would be good with it.
So the low column with a $100 increase for any non-resident.
Correct.
Okay.
Councilmember Wong?
Can you repeat that again?
The low column would be the one that we would go with the exception of any non-residential rate, it would increase by $100 from what is currently listed.
So your non-resident weekday goes from $250 to $350. Your non-resident weekend goes from $4 to $5, both of which are about $50 higher than the low, and they're still lower than medium B.
So are we talking also about Housie Park as well?
Or
just Casey?
I'm laser focused on.
Casey?
I
Okay.
agree, yeah.
I just wanted to clarify
I'm
there.
comfortable with Housie the way it is. I think, I guess I would have.
I agree.
Have to look to others if we have issues or have problems.
I'd want to look to Public Works of what Housie looks like when you do have to clean up that area. Ron?
Yeah, I guess I hear you saying, like, if that was a percentage, you're gonna raise it for non-resident, it would just be across the board?
I'm trying to follow you.
We're going to do $100 for each group for non-resident increase.
It's basically $50 for, no, well, I guess I can't see that either.
Well, see,
$100 for the weekend and $50 during the week for Casey.
well, I think, and Councilmember Wong asked to be clarified, and I think maybe I was saying $100 off of the 300, what it is right now. So that'd be 400.
For Casey? Yeah, that's what I was looking at too.
Oh, I was looking at weekday. Yeah.
All the way
Oh.
down the line.
Yeah,
Yep.
it'd be $100 all the way down.
$100 all the way added to each non-resident price.
But only for Casey.
We haven't got that far yet to the other ones, I guess. We haven't talked about it.
So I'm thoroughly confused because non-resident, so you're saying you want weekday currently a resident weekday is 200. You're suggesting 3?
Oh, I apologize. That I was over in the, because we started with the low one. So the 250, so the 250 is what we're looking at going with for that. And I was on the same column of the low one. So, oh,
Sorry.
that's all right. So, because we talked about the far right column, and that's what I've been working myself off of, so. But let's,
So resident weekday
Yep.
goes from 200 to 250.
yep,
Non-resident weekday
Goes from
250 to
350.
Ooh, who's
Yep.
got the pointer?
Yep.
I do.
That's awesome.
Now
yes.
you're moving really fast.
Yep, you're right.
Resident-
Yep,
Resident weekend goes from 3 to 4, and non-resident weekend goes from 4 to 5.
correct.
Yeah.
Are we?
Yep, we're good.
Are we aligned?
Yep, yep.
All right. Next step.
Now, are we going to talk about housing, or are we going to go to deposits right away?
We can talk housing.
I
Do you see any
I think-
difference between the two parks?
don't, I walked past Housie Park every single day I take my dog for a walk. I think the increases we're doing for Casey are in line with Housy. I see it used all the time, but the little bit of increase to me makes sense.
Okay.
So
Straight across the board?
go to low, so 175 for a resident weekday, 275 for non-resident weekday, and 200 for resident weekend, and 300 for resident weekend would be my thought.
Did Housy didn't have a resident, non-resident?
It has resident and non-resident. It doesn't,
It doesn't break out weekday and weekend.
I believe that's what it is, correct, yeah.
So we'll be breaking that out and doing the same thing as we did with Casey. Right? No,
If that is your direction.
you see any difference between the two parks? I mean, there's both shelters and everything else. I mean, they both have buildings and used, you see?
I mean, other than the number of people you can pack into houses, less than 50.
What about the amenities? Better amenities at Casey?
I mean, I'm comfortable with either leaving Housy the way it is or bringing it up to the low.
I'd be in favor for the low column.
So low with the $100 increase for non-residents.
So tell me the dollar amount you want to take it from and take it to. You want to take it from 200 to 300?
But yeah, I mean,
That's mine.
the non-resident fee would go to 300, yes.
Yep.
Where are you looking?
That's,
At Housy, so he's looking at non-resident weekday, it would be 200 to 300.
Wouldn't it go from 200 to 275?
We've been doing 100 increments.
We've been doing
with
100.
Casey.
Right, $100 over what the resident pays.
Over a building that is, can hold 3 times the number of people.
do we have an idea of how often Housy is rented out, like a ballpark percentage of per year? Like, how many
I think
days
it was 73 rentals
in the entire
9-month
year?
period.
But you still have the whole people in the park too, plus the building. I mean, you could have a lot more than actually fit in a building.
Yeah, so between January and September, we had 73
Okay.
versus 133 at Casey Lake.
Go back to the, if you wouldn't mind that slide, please, with the
Options.
options. Thank you.
I guess my concern for Housy to increase it 100 seems a little bit steep in terms of proportion when I'm thinking about Casey Lake versus Housy, again, because of the amenities and, you know,
But-
there's a lake at Casey
Sure.
Lake. Like,
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm looking though, if you look at that current column, 200, it didn't go up for, at the low, it stayed the exact same, but the resident went up from 150 to 175. Why? When everything else went up for resident, everything else except that one stayed at 200.
Yeah, it looks like it only went up.
We were running out of options for keeping it within that range, so it can be flexible, really,
How we do 250 for
for the non-resident.
non-resident?
So Housy would be
Every $50 for non-resident for Housy, $100 for non-resident for Casey.
with the low column. All the way to the right. We're going to do the pricing for the low. $50 non-resident Housy, $100 Casey.
Just talk dollars, you're 150, you lost me. Rental is 150.
Right now, yep.
Right now, you're proposing 175.
Yep. And 200 is right now, and I'm proposing 275 because it went 200, 200, it stayed the same all the way across the board. Yes. So it's going to be 175 and 250. Okay,
Done.
all right.
I agree.
All in favor?
And then 200, 275 for weekend?
Sure.
Who's taking notes?
Is that good?
Now, one quick curveball.
She's unplugging and she's done.
Are you making,
Fun
are
with numbers is over with her.
you guys making a motion?
We haven't talked hours, so we haven't talked penalties.
The rest of the, yeah.
The other piece is the rental of housing, does that include the picnic pavilion along with the building, or is that separate?
I need to verify that, but memory wants me to say that it's includes both.
I don't know, I've got,
Let me pull open the fee schedule and I can tell you.
is that, so it's.
So they get the whole thing then.
That's fine.
So all the picnic tables outside plus the pavilion, same thing with Casey then.
Well, there's not separate pavilion.
I mean, all the tables.
Separate facility
Yep.
for a picnic area.
Yep.
Where Casey's under the shelter.
Yep.
Yeah, with Casey, the outside area is part of your rental. And I believe it's the same at Housy.
Okay, that's all I got.
All right, thank you. And then deposits, are we comfortable with where they are? I basically am, I'm more in line with putting a little more meat behind. If you're not out by 11 o'clock, you lose half your deposit. If you're not, I just want to make it easier for.
Yep, and they know the rules.
Right.
Is the numbers okay for deposit?
Yep.
You? Mm-hmm. I should say council member, not you.
It's all good. It's all good.
Sorry about that. All right. Now what's the next?
So I move that we make the changes discussed to the fee schedule.
Do we have one more thing we got to hit first?
Oh,
Do we want to talk about the rest of the policy?
Of park hours?
I think it's in there.
Yeah? Are you going to talk about that at all?
I
Park
don't have
hours,
any additional comments on that. I just reported what the.
Right now, the discretion, or what we had before was we thought the pavilion went an hour longer than the park, but the park and the pavilions are the same hours.
Correct.
So we're covered there. Are you good with that?
Yeah, as long as they're the same. I
Okay,
thought
yep,
one went.
yep. And that was a great thing, because you shouldn't have something open if the park's closed, and it makes it hard for the police and everybody else to figure out what's going on there, so as long as they match. Was there anything else?
And then the only thing I thought of is, do we want to make some type of fine, penalty, whatever, from your deposit if you don't vacate by? Just,
Yep.
I don't know how many instances we had. I know there was enough that we heard about them.
Yeah, quite a bit when we're in the summertime.
Probably around 5 at least.
So lose 50% of the deposit if you're not out by 11, if you're not out at 11,
I'm waiting for you to respond.
or just make it a flat fee of $100. I don't know. We're paying the cleaners to just sit there, so.
Yep. They're on the clock. So who calls the police? The cleaners? So that's the first thing. If they get there and it's gone past and they're not leaving, they call the police?
They're pretty good about stepping up and talking to them and asking them to leave, that this is the time, and if people are getting rowdy, then they'll go the next step to the PD.
And that's where the position I don't want to put these poor people in, is to even have
It
to
can be
talk
dangerous,
like that.
yep.
I mean, because that's not acceptable. How can we, oh, here he comes. I knew we'd finally get him out of the bullpen.
Welcome.
State your name and what you do for the city.
Ron Ritchie, 2485. I spoke with, is this working? I spoke with the cleaners today about that, and he said, and one of his comments was that he had told some of the people that had rented the building, you know, hey, if you're not out of here on the time, you're going to lose your deposit. And he goes, a handful of times people just walked away and said, if I'm losing my deposit, then they didn't do anything to clean up. So just keep that in mind. He just told me, we were talking about that today. So, I mean, I don't know.
great
whether you
information.
have to decide on, what you're going to hold back for that, but.
And if the deposit's not much, they think, well, spend an hour or two cleaning. If I'm losing half of it anyways,
Yeah,
just walk
and
away
I don't
again.
know if the police calls are like a regular, like reported call where they actually got called out, or if that was how many times that.
It was not I forget the terminology that Phil uses, but it was specific calls to those facilities is what I was referring to.
Do we know how many times it was abandoned, where they just said out the door and didn't do anything?
No,
I think that only happened once.
Okay.
It's
That's a
not
valid
common.
point, though.
Did that happen more than once? I don't,
No,
hear
Caesar
about that.
was saying, he was just telling me today that there's a lot of times that he'd go down there and he'd tell the people, hey, you're gonna lose your damage deposit, and the people would just stop doing what they were, doing and just walk away from. They'd grab, their stuff, that, any little cleanup that they would probably do for the, kind of out of courtesy, they'd stop doing it, so I just stopped saying that to them, so. The one where they abandoned the whole thing, they assumed they could come back in the morning to pick up their
Yeah.
stuff. And so they had left everything there, so.
Do we have anything in place that if they lose their entire damage deposit, they are ineligible from renting for a certain period of time?
We do not have that yet. Oh.
Thank you, Ron.
Excuse me, I've been corrected. Carrie says that we do.
we do.
So that is in the policy currently. My apologies.
So it doesn't happen, it sounds like, which I think is fortunate a lot, but sometimes you look at the mess and you look at the $150 and you go, okay, well, bye,
Yeah.
because it's not much of a deposit, but I'm glad it doesn't happen very often.
But if they know, I guess, my opinion going, if they know that going in, they might be more,
Yep.
more willing to make sure that they adhere to what is being asked of them as opposed to, well, you're gonna lose your deposit if you're not gone, and, that becomes a threat after the fact as opposed to being educated in advance.
So the deposit is $150, if I remember right? Is that right, I think, remember right?
That was,
Deposit.
we're looking at additional 150 for people with alcohol.
Deposit for Housy, Casey is 300 on weekdays, 350 on weekends.
I mean, if we do a percent, I like your idea where there's a percent if you don't leave in time. And not, 25, 50%, something like that, because they're charging us $100 an hour to clean, correct? So 15-minute increments, something like that. So I mean, whatever it is, but, not like, I agree with what Ron just said, if it's all right at the beginning, but if you at least say, if there's certain percent, if you go over, this time limit, you're going to lose 50% or 25% of your deposit. Not the whole thing, because then there's still skin in the game. Thoughts? We'll get you should only take 2 strides to get to that microphone.
Why do you sit in the far back?
Who's gonna determine the time? If
Well, we're going to have it in the contract. We're going to write up there. It's
Right,
11
but at that time, if you're not out of there at 11 o'clock,
Correct.
you lose.
Yep.
From 11 to, I guess how I'm understanding this is if it's 11 to 11:15, you lose
I'm understanding.
$25, and if
Yep.
it's 11:30, you lose.
Yep.
But who's gonna determine that time?
Caesar.
The cleaners?
It's going to be the cleaners when they call up and say they didn't leave at 11 o'clock. If they get there, because we're paying them to be there, so we should be taking it out of the deposit to pay to have them sitting there.
Okay.
Is that okay? Great. Any
I guess
ideas?
my hesitation with, taking away a percentage even is perhaps it doesn't seem like it's a big enough pattern, and that's something I'd hate to put a price on because it doesn't seem to be a pattern.
But if there's something there in writing, then they know when they're looking at it. We better get out of here, otherwise we're going to have some skin in the game. If we go 11, who cares, if we go 15 minutes over or something like that. To me, it's just courtesy to have them, okay, it's 11 o'clock, we have an agreement at 11 o'clock, you need to be out of there. We have crews, and just say that right in the contract. We have cleaning crews that show up at 11 o'clock to clean. And if you're not out, percentage of the deposit goes away, because we're hiring people to stand there. That's my opinion.
Yeah. So I think you had alluded to maybe even more education up front too. I would also be in favor of that.
It would be on the
to complement-
contract. Mhm.
Right, on a contract, but who's reading contracts? A lot of people don't. And so to make it a little bit more accessible, I think, to the public, maybe it's a short video of like, this is what we're asking you to do. These are the quick rules. Bam, bam,
I like
bam,
that
bam.
idea of
You
a
have to
video.
watch it, and and hopefully that will help. And it seems to be something that can complement until, something gets worse.
I still like to go with the percent and then have the education too. Because when we're paying somebody to be up there, it's not up to them.
For every 15 minutes?
That's right, it's $100 an hour, somebody said somewhere for something cleaning.
Is that too much?
That's
don't
too
know.
much tracking. I
No, is that too much
It's been tracking for
imposing
Caesar.
on the cleaners?
That's what a little bit of my concern was.
I agree.
Is putting that on them. I mean, they're there to come and clean the building, and now they have to, let's say they went there to clean and they said, hey, they're not out yet, we're gonna leave, go down to McKnight and do a cleaning that we have to do there. Now they're kind of locked in and staying there for how long were they there? And then the argument of, well, no, we left at 11:15, and they said, no, it was 11:18, and I mean, we're kind of putting that on the cleaner, and that's,
Well, I thought they would stay there. I had no idea that they would go to another building, McKnight, in the middle of the night at 11 o'clock to start a new building.
well, they do the bathrooms at Silver Lake all
Yeah.
summer. They do, if we have something going on at McKnight, if there's a tournament, I mean, they could leave and come back, and, you just don't know. They'd be locked into staying there. I mean,
That's why we're paying for it, to have them there. I don't want them to go in. I mean, that's something where I just don't want to keep their safety where they're not going up to people and saying, that type of stuff, because I think that's not a position for them.
I agree.
Just in the car looking, okay, well, and they just have to report back. They left at 11:15. I went in there and cleaned. They left at 11:30. Okay, that's $50 later. And if after half an hour, you call the police.
Does the same cleaner clean Casey as Housey?
Yep.
So we're only gonna have a monitor at one park. If we're,
If they're both booked.
I don't necessarily know we have a problem with both parks.
Okay.
We don't know that. Yeah.
So right now, if somebody stays late, what is would they come in 11 o'clock and they're still there, they approach the people and say it's time to go?
They usually do, yes.
Then they go another time if they're not, 10 minutes later?
They might hang out and wait a little bit. They might go and do something else and come back. I don't know for sure. Yeah, I don't think it's like schedule. I mean, I think they try to be there at 11 o'clock just because I think that's one of the last these buildings that are rented, that's the last things they do for the evening. So they try to get in there and get out, and get done, but.
Well, if I'm putting too much thought or too much into this, let me know. I mean, to me, that's,
I can
if we're paying
certainly
staff.
hear your concern with the cleaners and making sure that they're respected and they're just trying to do their job. I'm wondering if this route charging for extra time over kind of also adds more work or adds a different layer to it. So it kind of, it's a trade-off. Either they're addressing people or,
Okay. What do we do if we don't do anything as far as any kind of, how do we take it so they're not approaching people to leave? Because I'm not comfortable with that at all.
I also think that if you I'm going to recommend 50%. You lose 50% of your deposit if you're not gone by 11 o'clock. Because that's going to personally, that's going to put me, I'm heading out the door. And then they're not approaching
I
anybody.
was trying not to be the grumpy one again.
Well, I'll be the grumpy one on that one.
Okay, you do that.
Hey, we're a team here, okay?
All right, thank you. I'm going to get in trouble enough.
I think 50%, I think you lose half of your deposit. Because then we're avoiding our cleaners approaching these individuals.
That's ours now. So, you want to read what you just showed me?
The current renter responsibility says all reservations must be cleaned up and out of the park building by 11 p.m. or they will automatically forfeit their deposit.
There you go. It's current policy. I didn't know we had.
Done.
But then it becomes this whole issue, like you said, where they just, okay, I'm done.
Oh, you're right.
I think it's on the cleaners.
Then they leave.
One way or the other, because they're the last person, unless we're paying someone from the city to go down there and manage this.
Yep.
Brian, do we have public camera coverage of both parks?
Do we have them at Housy?
Not
Just Casey.
We don't want to add any more work to the staff. I just want to make sure that our contractors are safe. And that's,
And I agree with you too. I mean, it's been, when I've heard the stories from when they're down there, having an argument with people and I tell them not to leave and they have to contact the police. It's really not fair to them because that's
100%.
really not their responsibility. They're just down there to get the building ready for the next people, and they have to do it at that night, because I believe the next rental agreement starts at 7 a.m., if that's correct, right? So that, they have that small window, they got that, less than 7 hours, or I guess 8 hours, if they're out at 11, to get that building cleaned up, so.
looking at me.
Well, I mean, the
I just think like,
Current policy is more.
Yeah,
strict than what we
commer-
talked about.
It is.
Well, then we should remain with it.
Make the motion?
Yep. Or what
No,
do you
go
think?
ahead.
Nope.
well, I just think it's like, it feels a little bit punitive to me, that's all. And I understand that there are things that people do, and oftentimes it's an entire party. And then that one person who, is running the party has to try to get all these people out. And if they go 15 minutes over, it just feels punitive to me, trying to get that many people out.
I would go with 50% if it's after 11, then, instead of 100%, then 100% if they don't clean it up. Then the rest they lose if they don't clean up. What are your thoughts on that?
I like their policy, our current policy.
Current policy? All right.
We just need to put a little teeth in it, and I think it's very subjective. I don't know if we've even held it back.
Well, it sounds like if the cops are coming, we had a few times where at least they weren't out of there.
Should
when
have.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know if we did.
That's what I'm saying. So it sounds like we've had circumstances that may have led to that, but it maybe didn't happen.
We have
Have we?
kept deposits, yes.
For tardiness, too?
I believe we have. Yeah, yep.
Okay, he's just nodding back there. Don't talk, just nod. All right, just keep it the way it is. All right,
I've said my piece.
thank you.
So I so move we change the fee structure to what was discussed.
Yeah, we have to move that.
Thought there was more.
Is there more?
Is there more? Okay, no. No, I won't ask.
Are you
I was
sure?
just wondering why only 2 food trucks in the policy. That's the only other question I have about the policy.
Oh,
I like that question.
we've come away from that. Well, Arts and Culture and Parks and Rec had how many out there on the street?
Well,
At that one time?
This is a private event, so housing seats 50 people. Pick a number.
Well, Housy has a food truck event,
Correct.
so that wouldn't,
This is for private, this is
oh,
for rental.
I see.
Am I interpreting that right?
But that's 50 inside, you could have more people outside, a lot of, that time too.
there.
So, I mean, it's,
Bring the neighbors to get some food truck.
I'd go with a food truck.
I mean, do we see is there a reason why that's in there, limit of 2?
I am not familiar with the origin of that particular policy statement.
Was that in there from before then? I was wondering where it came from.
No, it's been in the policy. It's not new.
Okay. I know food trucks have been becoming more and more popular over the years for
They
people
also
at
have
events.
minimums that they have to meet too, though. So, I mean,
You gotta-
you're not going to have 4 food trucks with a 50-person group. You have to meet like a $2,000 minimum.
Oh, I had no idea. I look like
Also
it,
am
but
I.
I haven't had a food truck.
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't know if that's really,
Is there a number that you're more comfortable with?
No limit.
I mean,
Remove
as
it.
long as like traffic is, manageable and things like that, it's maintains safety, whatever, I think it's fine. I think also food vendors have multiple sites too, and so, it's hard to get a lot sometimes too, so I can't imagine more than 10. But probably more like 3, 4. Again, there's no, I can't put a number on it.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't, more food the better for me.
Invite me to
I'm
your
not
party.
shy. Okay.
My only thought is with every food truck, there's a generator. These are in residential neighborhoods. Are we comfortable with 4 generators outside someone's house until 11 PM?
Oh, you were on your game tonight. That's a good question. Any thoughts on that?
I would also be comfortable saying, leaving it at 2 with adding the caveat more upon special request or something that can be reviewed by city staff.
So Housey is the one, because you live by that park, I'm thinking of Casey, you're thinking of Housey, and you're right, it's just exactly, it's just everybody's around the park there. That's a good point. Have we ever had any requests for more than 2?
Not to my knowledge.
Were
I
they
would have to
even
check with
asked?
staff. Sorry?
Have they even asked ever about our,
I would have to
Regulation?
check with staff to see what the stats are.
well, I liked it till I heard about the generators. Then all of a sudden I went, wait a minute.
Buzzkill.
But absolutely, that we could just say, more than 2 to reviewed by city staff, and if all the food trucks said, we're okay being done by 9 for this event, then we're not being a bothersome to the residents. So,
But 2 in request, special request, or upon special request for more? I mean, is that? So we haven't ran across it. Sometimes we get into things where they'll probably never hit it, but
I like that. I'm open.
say it.
2.
Okay.
And then special request. So if you like, obviously, if I want.
Time-wise, I think it's going to be, and I agree 100%, where after, 9 o'clock, you got generators going and a bunch of things happening. That's, that does, especially at the other, what's the name? Housey, thank you. Housey Park. All right, we good?
Should we vote on it?
I don't know. Are you kids?
Are you okay?
I'm perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, do you want to,
Keep me in track.
you good? Fair? You want more trucks?
I want more trucks. Yeah. I think 3 or 4 is fine, and then I'd hate to just, it's another step for staff to do it beyond 2.
What staff think?
What
for
does
this?
staff think? Yeah.
I honestly don't know how much of an issue it is,
Yeah.
so I'm comfortable with the approach of keeping the current policy and seeing if there are extra requests, monitoring that, and potentially approving if they agree to
If
pack
they
it up
ask.
by 9 o'clock.
If they ask how many food trucks we can explain, we have 2 unless there's,
So we can add that in the policy.
all right. You've been waiting, go ahead.
I so move we update the park policy to the things discussed.
Second.
Se-
Say it louder.
Councilmember Norby, second. Councilmember Cole, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Wow.
I think I'm grayer. Thank you, everybody. That was a good conversation. I think we got a lot taken care of, and we got it done. That's the main thing, is to get it done so we can not have these people wait. So thank you all.
And I think we've got a good base going forward for
Yes.
next year.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you all.
Next up, item C is discussion of 2024 fee schedule. Turn that back over to Brandy.
So this is just a continuation of our last meeting where we went through the items in the fee schedule. The discussion points that we talked about at the last meeting have been modified in this fee schedule. In addition, I have updated the building permit and inspection fees to reflect the proposed contract with Rum River. And I'm happy to go over any questions that you might have of the fee schedule. Or if you'd like me to go specifically into the Rum River contract and how it differs from our current fee schedule.
Anybody have a preference?
Yeah, we can start there. I have some other things.
Okay,
but yeah.
thank you.
Comparison, okay. And we also still have them in our audience if we need additional clarification.
I think they burned half of their budget here tonight.
Riveting conversation.
I can talk about the budget, it was easy.
Yeah, who would have thunk
Where
it?
are you going, Dan?
That's enough.
So Carrie with Rum River, that is, was very kind enough to provide a comparison of our fees compared to what we have now versus what they propose. And on the screen, well, first of all, building permits are based on the value of the project. So what they have provided is a similar valued project for each of these permit types and have itemized what it would cost under our current fee schedule versus what they would charge. So for a deck permit, based on the criteria that they provided, we would currently be charging $292.30. Rum River would charge $301.62. However, included within their fee is that inspection. Our inspections are charged separately under our current fee structure. And so we've got those value-based items first in the bold italic. And then in the second grouping of three, we have the fees that are flat fees proposed by Rum River. And those include the re-roofing, re-siding, doors and exterior windows, et cetera. And currently with MinSpect and our current fee schedule, the re-roofing project based on a $20,000 value would have been $370. With Rum River, it'd be $125. Same with the fixtures, $254 based on a new home that has 17 fixtures would be that current fee. Rum River would charge $150. Mechanical is $65 currently, $125 with Rum River. This slide shows plan review fees and some additional building permit fees, such as demolition, that sediment and erosion control that we talked about earlier. We have fees for license lookup now and lead certification verification. We're not going to be charged those fees under our new proposed contract. And then finally, inspections. I think this was where I was getting a little confused again. The 6090, I think, was related to those sediment and erosion control. There's no additional fee for Rum River. And then the inspection rates for the building official is $125 per hour flat fee. Rum River, whatever inspector you get, it's going to be $125. And they had different values based on the level of inspector you're going to have with MinSpect. And then finally, inspections that might occur outside of business hours. Currently, they're $75 an hour plus travel time with a minimum charge of 2 hours. And then with Rum River, they're able to do Saturday inspections if requested for no additional, I might need clarification on this one. Emergency requests are $150 per hour with a minimum charge of 2 hours. So those are basically the broad brush changes. There are some other minor nitty-gritty minutia type changes in the fee schedule, but this is kind of the big picture. And I would defer to Carrie and Andy, the new building inspector, if you have any specific questions about how our fees under their contract would be impacted, specific to building inspection and permitting. If not, we can
Questions?
release them, and then we can jump into any questions you might have for the rest of the fee schedule.
I appreciate the Saturday. That's a nice feature. I appreciate that. I'm sure the emergency must be if somebody calls, I need somebody out tomorrow. which makes sense. You don't have enough time to plan with your people and everything else, so that does make sense. Yep, exactly, that type of thing, where you can't get ahead of it. Okay, great. Well, welcome to North St. Paul, appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
So I will spare going through the rest of the fee schedule unless you've got specific questions related to the other changes.
I have some questions. So I'm looking at, let's see, page 2 where it says event permits, and you had a policy question in regards to National Night Out and charging for, or not charging for those block parties. So just wondering what the council's thoughts are on waiving or changing that or keeping that for National Night Out specifically. Do we want to charge $20 or not?
Any comments?
I'm for waiving that fee. This is something we encourage all residents to participate in. We don't want to put barriers up for that.
I think that's what the fee is basically for, so put the barriers to drop off, set up, pick up the barriers. We only hit a couple neighborhoods that even had them.
I agree.
So remove it?
I agree. I also say waive the amount.
Okay.
We're encouraging.
But then what do we do about the barriers? If you want the barriers, you gotta pay. I mean, like I said.
I agree.
Okay. So,
Okay,
See how it goes this year.
you heard it. Heard it from the guy in the back row.
All right, we'll
I agree.
waive that
We'll waive that fee.
okay, cool.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Randy, if you're willing, can you explain what a 65% plan review may apply, what that means?
Excuse me. The plan review fee is 65% of the building permit fee. So back to that original example that we had, I don't remember the numbers, but if our building permit fee, as the homeowner, you pay $500 for your building permit, 65% of that would go to the plan review, I believe is how that works.
So the cost is still the cost, it's not an additional,
Correct. Yep. It's just a percentage that goes towards different pieces of the broader and building permit.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a clarification for 22 under zoning permits and planning application fees. It says design review is eliminated from the proposed 2024 fee schedule because the commission is no longer in existence. And that would be reviewed during the site plan review. It was my understanding that the planning commission has taken over the design
Correct.
components. Okay.
Yeah, anything related to building exterior or site design is going to be looked at during the site plan review process by staff and also the planning commission.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And can you, so I'm looking at event permits and park and rec fees on, I think, page 129 of the packet. I'm looking at the arts and culture programming section, and it has recreational programming that varies per event, and then the paint-along at $10 per event. Can you clarify or differentiate those two items?
Yeah, I think we originally had a recreational fee as quote-unquote varies as a catch-all. And as we've been able to establish those events and define what they are to what we will be charging for them, it just clarifies in the fee schedule what we're actually charging. So whenever we can have a defined rate, we'd like to do that. I believe that arts and culture and potentially Park and Rec could create a new event mid-year before we have a fee in place, so that is intended to be in place of that.
Okay. One reason that I hesitate to keep the paint-along on there is because I believe that the Arts and Culture Commission is also looking to solicit different artists too, so that might change a little bit.
That's a good point.
So, yeah, just to keep the flexibility might be helpful. But yeah, I don't know if anyone has thoughts about that.
Any thoughts? I defer to you when it comes to art. I'm not an art guy, so.
Is that something you would want changed, or just give the Arts Commission ability to waive that fee for certain things?
I think I would be comfortable if the paint-along was also part of the recreational programming at this time, just in case there are changes that come along this next year. And then maybe reevaluate next year to see if anything has changed.
I see that. That's reasonable. That's good.
That's all I have.
Anybody else? All right.
Motion?
Motion to approve the changes?
So moved.
So moved. Councilmember Swear. Second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Wong. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, next up is a discussion on health and dental insurance savings options. I'll turn that over to Dan. More options for you guys tonight.
So just for clarification on the fees and the changes with park rental fees, they will all be incorporated. This still needs to be published and then brought back to city council in 2 weeks because it has to be published for 10 days. And so in 2 weeks, you'll have the official approval of the fees and rates structures. No more discussion on to them, though. That's it.
That's right.
All right.
Draw the line, but we got a cooling off period.
So here's another discussion item, and so at the end of this, you'll give us, we need to have directions so then we can incorporate this into the budget if there's any changes, because in 2 weeks, we have to have all of the line items and all of the budgets, including, any other transfers that are from other budgets, not the levy components to it. And so we'll have all of the budgets. So, as we had discussed earlier, and there was a change for our health and dental insurance carrier from PEEP to United Healthcare. This resulted in a savings. And the total savings to the city is a little over $170,000. Approximately $125,000 of that is in the general fund, and about $45,000 is in the enterprise funds, housing and redevelopment, and the economic development budget. So with those savings, we have some options to be discussed. And so I'll just quickly share that in the packet. Says it's over here, okay. So I put together 5 different options. So for the other funds, for the HRA and the EDA components to it, my suggestion is we'll reduce the budgets, but I wouldn't take any savings because it doesn't have a direct levy impact to it. What it'll end up doing is just going into, at the end of the day, fund balance for the enterprise funds. It's not enough to change any of the rates or any of the other requests that we've put together at this point in time. The one that could have an impact on something is the general fund. The savings, again, is $125,000, so there's 5 options. We can reduce the levy by the full savings. What it would do is it would reduce the levy from the 8.5% to 6.59%. Option number 2 is we can transfer the savings to the insurance fund and no levy reduction. Those are 2 total opposites on the spectrum. Option 3, we can reduce the one-time transfer from the electric fund to the streets of $1.1 million by the approximately $125,000, no levy change. Option 4, we can transfer partial savings, $59,000, to the insurance fund and reduce the levy from 8.5 to 7.5%. Or option 5, transfer the partial savings, the $59,000, to the insurance fund and reduce annual electric transfer of $300,000 by the $65,000, again, resulting in no levy change. If you have some other option that's a variation of these, we could certainly look at those too. I think part of our discussion when we changed from PEEP to United Healthcare, which was a very true statement and one that I truly believe in, is that the savings that resulted here from this is due to a very low claim rate in the prior 12 months. I do not believe that's going to be the same claim rate we're going to have in the next year. So what's going to end up resulting, more than likely, is we're going to see that big increase again. Now, from a finance director's position, I look at it as this is what's on the table for next year, and we kind of looked at some of this in one of our budget discussions. We're making a commitment, which I believe is the right commitment to make for infrastructure. So we're starting off 2025 budget already with a 3% levy increase. We're going to have some sort of union increase. All of our contracts are up at the end of 2024, so we're not going to know what those are in 2025. I'm not even going to speculate to what that could be. And then we're going to have some other increases in just our general accounts. So we're going to already be at a certain percentage. What happens if this reverses itself all the way back and all of a sudden we're up another 2% on top of it? We could easily be seeing ourselves approaching that double-digit levy increase. So I'll just give my recommendation. The rest of it's conversation for City Council in your final decision. To me, I like option number 3. We've had comments about the transfer from the electric fund. It has no levy change. It stays within our levy. Let's reduce that $1.1 million transfer by this approximate $125,000 and call it a night. Open for questions and comments, suggestions.
So number 3, you're talking.
It's a one-time transfer, so Councilmember Schwer, that $125,000 will still be in our levy. So when if and when the premiums go back up to, let's say, what's in our budget currently today, we've already got the levy money there taking care of it.
So you'd take, correct me if I'm wrong, you take the 125, we'll say, just rounding it, from electric fund to put it in the insurance?
No, I wouldn't transfer to the insurance fund. What I would do is, instead of transferring the $1.1 million from the electric fund it goes into the street maintenance fund. Instead of doing that, I would reduce that, so it would be approximately $975,000 that would be transferred instead of the $1.1 million transfer. It still holds our levy at the 8.5% that we're currently at. We've just gone through truth and taxation, and the levy's already there, because this is only a one-time, this isn't on a continual basis. Then we still have that $125,000 in levy, and it's the levy component that's of worry, that it would still be available. We're not going to get that 2% increase if it goes back to where it's at. Does that make sense?
So 2025 comes along and there's an increase. Do we pull that out of the electric fund? Because it's like a placeholder, or how does that work?
It is already in your base. It's in your base. So,
What's the difference between option 3 and option 2, where you're transferring the savings into the insurance fund?
Yeah, that was the piece I was looking for clarity on, what is the definition of insurance? When I
It's a-
read-
it's a-
when I read
it's a-
the packet, it was like a savings account.
it's another fund. Because the insurance fund is an internal service fund, it's the same mechanism. It again, doesn't reduce your levy, but the money would go into the insurance fund itself. We certainly can do that too. I was just throwing option number 3 out there because there has been discussion about the electric fund. If there's some sort of concern about that, this just reduces it to some degree. But again, the choice is totally up to you. My recommendation, more than anything, is not to reduce the levy.
Right. And I mean, I agree with you. You're going to see an increase next year in your benefits. United Healthcare is going to look at you and be like, this is fantastic. And then whatever you have for the city, not you specifically, have for claims, they're going to increase you. So I would easily say you're right, prepare for that increase. I understand the concern with the electric fund. I mean, but regardless, you're still going to need to pay the insurance. So for me, I look at option 2 as being the best option.
So would option 2 be like a health savings account like I have at work? So I take that amount of money and I put it in there for when I need it next time, then if we put it in the insurance fund? Because it's there to use for insurance when it goes up to pull back out?
Absolutely. It's in its own fund, so what it does is, let's just say, for sake of conversation, let's say it premiums go up and it's double this amount. Well, then you still will be, there's no levy increase, you've already got the 125, plus you can take from fund balance of the $125,000 that you've put in there for this year.
And
So
then-
it's a double, by far, it's protecting you the most as far as any increases for insurance.
But also for employees, you're also protecting your employees so you don't have a higher cost to the employee.
No. The way the union contracts read, they're very clear. That's why they get a savings, and that's where we kind of had a little bit of a discussion onto that after the change from PEEP to United Healthcare. The union contracts spell it out. And they say for single coverage, whatever the change is, increased or decreased, the change is that the employee picks up 10%, the employer picks up 90%. And for family, it's 80-20, or 20-80. So they get the savings from the premiums, and just like last year, they picked up 10 and 20% of the increase that we had. So it's really just focusing on the city side to it and making sure that we're positioning ourselves in a way that we don't get a hit and increasing our levy, especially after the fact that you went with a proposed at 8.5. It's been published with the Truth and Taxation. We've had the hearing. We virtually have had no comment from our residents regarding that 8.5. And again, it's in line with what we're seeing other cities and towns at that are slightly over that 10% levy amount.
Thing I like about the option 2 is, like, families do, you know, they have an envelope for vacation, an envelope for car insurance, envelope for that. We're putting it in our envelope because we know we're going to need it for insurance someday. So
Absolutely.
it's not like it just goes into a big fund and, you know, it's, okay, we know it's coming.
Yep.
We're going to put it in there, so then we pull that out and it doesn't get
Yep.
taken for anything else.
Absolutely. Can't be taken unless city council took action to move it somewhere else where I don't think that that's going to be happening. So,
I just like, because then for anybody looking at it, they can look and say, oh, okay, that makes sense. They took that, they put it in there for insurance. We know insurance is going to go up. We got it there. It makes me feel more comfortable.
Yep, makes me feel more comfortable too. I like that, I like that option. So I'm hearing at least three. Councilmember Cole likes.
Said a word.
Body language tells me, Councilmember, it's 8:35, it's past my bedtime. But kind of want to hear from everybody if that kind of seems to be the better option. Option number 2, transferring the savings to the insurance fund with no levy reduction. Do I hear a motion?
We know it's coming. It's not like it's going to be I mean, it's like your cable bill. You move to somebody else and you're the best friend, then the next time around, they jack you up till you have to go to another spot. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not going to be a surprise.
And the biggest driving factor to it is that our percentage of claims in comparison was very low. And that's why it drove these rates.
Just the perfect circumstances to get that amount was what we had.
Absolutely, yeah.
I suppose that would be the most responsible. So we can't put the 125, just add it into the streets too?
We certainly could add it to the streets. That's definitely an option.
Not right now, I think.
It would have been an option.
Personally, I like option number 3. One of my concerns about our budgeting process is, I believe in the paperwork that Dan gave us, is in the 5 to 7 year expectancy, electric is going to ask for $3.5 to $5.8 million. I believe that this 1.1 transfer out of electric is, to use a phrase I've used before, is kicking the can down the road. That concerns me. But I'd be okay with either option 2 or 3. I lean towards 3.
All right, body language is pretty good. Nice job. So both Councilmember Wong and I lived through the 50% increase a year ago. We had to table programs that we had already decided to go forward with so that we could pay for, so that, you heard it, it's 90% the city pays for and 80% for families. So it was a large dollar amount that came upon the city to pay for. I like the idea of an insurance fund. And we can always identify where that money's gonna go at a later time.
Yeah.
To me, it insulates the city a little bit because our rates will go up. I'm wholeheartedly agreed. Just because we had a whole lot of other things a lot of claims that drove it up a year ago. So that's why I like option 2, is that there's something there to buffer the city that's been identified for when it does go up.
Yes, Councilmember Cole, you and Councilmember Wong lived through it last year, and unfortunately, it's about the same amount that it went the opposite way, which, yeah, so for the other 3 council members, the mayor and the other 2 council members, we were on the track of putting more money towards the streets last year, and we had to pull drastically back because the insurance premiums at the last moment, we got notification that they went up significantly, so.
Option 2. All right, so we want to,
So move.
thank you. So move, Councilmember Swear. Second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Wong. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next item up, item E, authorized application for Metropolitan Council Environmental Services 2024 Private Property Grant Program.
Welcome. It's still the same night, you know, when you walked up the first time, you know.
We are doing
Welcome, good to see you.
Thank you, Mr.
Both of you?
Mayor, members of the council. Happy to answer any questions on these items.
thank you. I'm just getting back to that page.
The I&I grant program is page 35 of 158 in the packet.
Okay, thank you.
So, okay, first of all, thank you for, seeking grants and really providing opportunities for our residents to access them. I do see a point in there that says, for private property owners meeting their municipality's equity criterion, the grant award may increase up to $10,000. I'm kind of wondering how are we determining equity in this situation?
Sure, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Wong. So this is a newer program. We are all still learning about it as it goes. The December 15th deadline for submission of the application and resolution is what's driving the timing on this. I will state to the council that individual cities do have some latitude to develop kind of how this winds up coming out to residents, and I have not seen a specific guideline from the Metropolitan Council right now in terms of exactly how to define that equity component. It may be there, and it just hasn't been made obvious to the cities at this point, so that's something that staff is going to lean into following the application process, and then, as I understand it, the cities should be finding out on December 28th or 29th in terms of how much has been awarded to this program. It may be, I answered the same exact question for a different city last night. I believe that defining that equity component is either going to be set to, the poverty level or from an income standpoint, or possibly, property value versus median or some other benchmark that either the Met Council or the state is going to define or should provide at least guidance. Again, it is going to be up to the cities to define kind of that program as it's offered to residents of each city. As I understand it, based on, I think, the direction this is going to go, that working with the city's communications director, additional information once it's clarified, once staff has some clarity, and probably needing to address the council in terms of just being able to align that program. Information will be posted on the city's website, included in the city's newsletter, going out to let folks know that this program is available. And then improvements to their individual sewer services, as mentioned in the memo, in terms of what is eligible there. That would be performed by contractors, proof of the cost being presented to the city, and then once upon inspection or validation that the work has been done, then that subsidy would be passed through from the city to the resident, and then again reimbursed to the city by way of the Met Council. So specific to equity, though, I think we need to do a little bit more homework, working with the Met Council folks after the award has been made. But they have stated that they're willing to double, I guess, that component in specific instances. We'll just have to understand exactly what documentation they're going to need to be able to provide that. And we'll certainly pass that through the public as well once we have that.
Thank you. That's all the questions that I had.
Thank you. Can I get a motion?
One more question. Can you explain how, on a typical residence, this groundwater is entering? What will be the typical use of this grant?
Sure. So one, probably the easiest to understand example, and if you read the memo, there's just a little bit of background there in terms of groundwater or clean water getting into our sanitary sewer system, and that can create surcharging issues for the city system, but also where the grant money is coming from. Well, it's coming from the legislature, but passed through the Met Council. The Metropolitan Council is responsible for treating all of our wastewater, right? And so it creates issues for them. So that's the impetus for the funding. In North St. Paul specifically, compared to a lot of cities, we do have high groundwater. And so if you can imagine an old clay tile sewer service pipe that serves a home for where everybody's wastewater flows out through that pipe into our sanitary sewer mains which are in the street, after 40, 50, 60 years, those clay tile pipes can separate, tree roots can grow into them, it's gaps. Modern construction is using sealed PVC pipes, so it's kind of watertight from the inside out and the outside in, but these older pipes are not watertight. So when in the spring, when our groundwater level comes up or the ground is saturated because we've just had a 3-foot snow melt in, 2 days or something like that, all of that water can trickle into some of these cracks and crevices that are created in these service pipes. And it does happen in our city system as well, too. But the Met Council has identified that even if all the cities kind of repaired and modernized all of their sewer mains in the street, we're still going to have some I&I on the private side coming in either through people's homes, through their sump pumps that are not legally connected to their sanitary sewer system, or otherwise just through I&I coming in through the pipes. So one example is for someone to, if they see the need or they're just concerned about I&I because they're being good stewards of that sort of thing, they would either replace their sewer service with a new, presumably PVC sewer service out to the main, which could include trenching, dig a hole, put in a new pipe, or there's, and then we've used this technology in the city as well too, trenchless technologies where you actually do a pipe liner from the inside. So you keep the old clay pipe, but you put this new pipe liner on the inside. You don't have to dig up as many holes in the yard, for example, to do that. In either situation, when you're done, you have you should have a watertight situation where even if the groundwater comes in or if we've got saturated soils, that sort of thing, the water is going to stay outside rather than trickle in. And you wouldn't think that that's a lot, but if you add it up amongst, 2,000, 5,000 homes or the entire metropolitan area, it does actually result in a lot of water that goes downstream and can cause issues for us, other cities, and for the Met Council.
So this is dollars that will provide homeowners.
Assistance.
I'll admit, my house is the clay tile house. So
Yeah, this is specific to private, which are the services. There is a part
call
of
you.
this grant program, which is for the public portion, and I'll probably have a resolution in front of you in January or February. That's a 2-year-long program. We've participated as long as I can remember in that program to get some money back for the improvements that the city does to the city system. So it's all coming from the legislature, but just on the private side, which is this piece, this is $1.5 million allocated to the metro area.
Thank you.
To make a motion.
So moved.
So moved. Councilmember Schwer.
Second.
Second, Councilmember Wong. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I apologize, I do have to step out for a moment, but by all means.
We'll try to behave
Carry
while you're
on.
gone. Yeah. Dad's gone.
Don't forget your popcorn.
All right. Now we're down to I? Is that right?
Yep.
Are you,
Yep, next item up, item F, 2024 pavement management project, professional services proposal from WSB.
Yeah, thank you again for proposing this. I know that trying to get all the streets taken care of is a big task, and I think this is a nice, intermediate in between the big projects. So I'm looking at the different streets that are proposed, and I'm wondering if sidewalks and bike lanes are considered in that. Again, I think we talked about once it's paved, that could be 20, 30 years down the road. So we may not have another opportunity until then. So I just kind of wanted to understand a little bit more about these particular sites and whether sidewalks and bike lanes would pertain to them.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the listing of streets that, and we purposefully didn't put a map together yet, but because it could change, I guess. But the bulleted streets that we've included as the current scope right now is meant to fit within the budget as included in the CIP and the budget for next year, as you have discussed thus far, and to be, I think, considered for approval at the next meeting. And they are, as you might recall from past discussions, driven by quantified pavement ratings, right? And so in conjunction with Public Works, and really Public Works is directing me, but we're trying to get at the streets that make the most sense, that don't have underground utility problems, but are showing some issues from a pavement and increased maintenance cost standpoint, I guess. And I mentioned in the memo, we could add some streets. We'll kind of have to, as we kind of finish the design, and if we get to the point where we think there's some additional money left in the budget, we might add some in if we can to maximize that. Specific to your question about sidewalks, it's not included in the scope right now. We have talked before about when you're focused on pavement rehabilitation, it's not necessarily a great opportunity. It can be done, but it's not always a great opportunity to go outside of the curb lines and start looking at things like sidewalks in the boulevard, for example, only because it can be complicated, sometimes controversial, and sometimes there's a lot of impacts with respects to moving light poles or power poles or cutting down trees or things like that. Now, that's not to say, and I guess I would certainly honor this proposal cost. I don't think it would be a lot of extra work to do kind of a dashboard review of some of these streets to see if, maybe there are some easy opportunities. As I've talked or presented to the council in the past, I always use the comp plan as a guidance document in terms of where has the council or previous councils or previous planning commissions and commissioners kind of identified where the greatest need for those things are. So that's certainly something I can represent to the council that we can include here just as a look. I can report back, I guess, in terms of just the scope of the project, though I'd represent that it's not an easy inclusion for the design and that sort of thing, bidding out for sidewalks, because it can be kind of complicated and expensive, I guess, with respect to adding a sidewalk. And as to bike lanes, that's certainly easy, and that, again, we can include that kind of review. Is it included, are these street segments on the comp plan, or is it on Ramsey County's active transportation map? And that's a simple striping endeavor if we can make it work, which doesn't add a lot of construction cost to the project. So I can commit to certainly doing that, and we can report back to the council in terms of what we're seeing or what we're finding, and maybe if there's some recommendations or if there's something that really does not lend itself, I can report back to the council on that.
Yeah, that'd be great. And if you'd take a look at, if it makes sense and if it aligns with the existing plans. Yeah, I just would hate to miss an opportunity.
Understood. Yeah, we can do that.
And I get that. And when we first started looking at this, and this is the first year we're doing this, so when I was first looking at doing this, I was trying to get as much of the roads covered as I or to buy us that time that we need because our roads are so bad, all over. So it's definitely something like Morgan said, the bike lanes, that's something with striping, if the roads warrant that, if they're wide enough, we can definitely do that. The sidewalks, when we go and plan for the following or, 2 years down the road for this, it's something, if we're looking at a road that warrants that, maybe that's something, that we can, check out and at least bring you the cost of what that might do or how much less road we have to do because we're putting that sidewalk. But like you said, if we're looking at trying to get by 15 years with some of these, I understand, definitely understand what you're saying, if we're not gonna have a sidewalk there. I totally get that.
And if nothing, the investigation now, I think, would inform, like, when the street does get reconstructed, that's the good opportunity because you can move the curb lines or you can account for different things. And so anything that we find now can be, included for future efforts, I guess, as we move
And-
forward.
And just so you guys kind of have an understanding of kind of how we're looking at it, Randy, myself, and Morgan, when we're doing these, we're not going in and doing full curb replacements. We're going out and walking these roads that we're going to do to see kind of what percentage of that curb we're going to have to replace. And there might be some that have some little cracks and stuff in them that we're leaving. But I think, Randy, I think he walked just this week, a couple of the roads that we were looking at doing. And I think it's around that 20% is roughly how much curb would get replaced in these areas. So if you guys get questions down the road when we're doing these projects, it's not a reconstruct. We're not going in there. If there's a known problem where there's water sitting or something, we're going to do what we can to do that. But without tearing out all the curbs, we might not be able to repair all of it. The goal with this is to, get as
Preserve.
much,
Preservation.
so we're not going back and blacktopping some of these roads 2 or 3 times in a summer or filling potholes.
All right, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Any other questions? Not, do I have a motion?
So moved.
So move, Councilmember Swear.
Second.
Second, Councilmember Norby. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
And item G, 11th Avenue Sidewalk Improvement Project, professional services proposal by WSB.
Thank you for staying.
I gotta call my boss when we late to work.
That's okay. Again, thank you for applying for the Active Transportation Infrastructure Grant. I'm excited to see the sidewalk go in. And I really think it's a compliment to the work on Ariel that was done. I think there's a lot of opportunity with 11th, just because, let's see, is it Metro Transit's looking at the purple line on White Bear, and then Ramsey County is also looking at redoing parts of McKnight. So I think there's a great opportunity, so thank you for seeing that.
And when we were doing Ariel with the city of Maplewood put in additional sidewalks between Ariel and White Bear on the north side. So it's kind of a nice connection and nice timing for it all.
Yeah, it really did come to fruition. I guess one question would be, what does that sidewalk look like? Is it wide? Is it like the trail that you see along McKnight? I'm just thinking also
You know the answer
bike
to
lanes.
this, because I don't.
Well, it's not designed yet, but so in 2014 or 2015, the council at that time discussed this exact sidewalk, in addition to some other things, because in 2015, I think it was 2015, was when 11th Avenue was overlaid between McKnight and Ariel. So they had a discussion about some options. I think ultimately the sidewalk was left out for lack of available funding at that time. So it's kind of nice now that we've got it, the construction at least is 100% funded. At that time, and I think this is where we'll start the criteria from a design standpoint, it needs to be wide enough for city snow removal from end to end, and so a minimum width there is 6 feet. We'd be looking at concrete as as opposed to like an asphalt trail. It'd be a concrete sidewalk. It would be set back from the curb line some amount based on how much room we have there, but for snow storage in between the sidewalk and the curb line, maybe 5 or 6 feet if we can get that much snow storage. I think that would be good. And there would be some coordination with Metro Transit, specifically on the bus stop that's mid-block there. And then also there's a bus stop, westbound bus line on the north side, 11th Avenue at Ariel Street as well too. So we'd want to work with them. I know in working with them in the past, they've got standards for how wide and where the concrete is, and if they're going to put a permanent shelter there or not. We'll just kind of have to figure that out working with those folks. But that's about as much detail as I can give you right now in terms of what it might look like. Generally straight from end to end.
Sure, yeah. I'm wondering if there's room for a bike lane, just because McKnight connects to the Gateway Trail right there, so.
Yeah, we can look at that, and I think maybe a bike lane might be on our comp plan for 11th Ave. I know that Maplewood does not have one to connect to, and there isn't one on 11th on the other side of McKnight either. But
There's an asphalt trail.
Yeah, but knowing that, I guess another option would be if we can fit it in the budget, if we can do an 8-foot wide facility that's off-street, that would be a width that would be acceptable to carry multiple different kinds of non-motorized users, meaning walkers and bikers, right? In lieu of a bike lane. I mean, people use bike lanes differently than they use trails or facilities that are off the road, and people that are comfortable riding on the road will use a bike lane, and people that are not comfortable want to be off the road. So I think we can certainly, I think that the amount dedicated by MnDOT for the construction is good. It's fairly healthy, if I can use that word. And so if we can do a somewhat wider facility off-street and fit it within the budget, I think that's completely reasonable to do. We can look at a bike lane. However, 11th Avenue is a state aid route, and they've got some pretty strict standards in terms of lane widths. And so we would have to just see if something can be fit in there. And knowing that, again, this is a sidewalk project, not a pavement project, so we would have to consider how we restripe. Is it as simple as just adding a bike lane to the north side, or do we have to shift everything over to make it fit, which makes it much more complicated? So, but we can take a look at that, certainly.
Yeah, I just think it fits well with the active part of it. So, but yeah, thank you. That answers all my questions.
All right. So we have a sidewalk on the south side of 11th, now the north side. We have that great sidewalk and area that goes up to the park. My big concern is we're offering places to walk, but how are we going to make sure when you got to cross 4 lanes of traffic? Are we going to be putting some kind of you're inviting people to take the sidewalk, but you can't run across the street because somebody stops in the first lane doesn't necessarily mean they're going to stop in the second lane.
Correct. That's an excellent question, Mr. Mayor. And we have already purchased, the city has already purchased 4 signs or 2 locations, right? 2 locations, yeah.
Correct.
So for both of those crosswalks that are in line with the bus stop, so one of them being at the uncontrolled intersection of Ariel and 11th Avenue, so there's not a stop sign there, right? But there is a crosswalk and there is a bus stop there, and then also mid-block, just north of, well, I'll just call it Target, just across from Target. There's a marked crosswalk there with the bus stop on the north side. And the plan is waiting until all the concrete is done so we don't put it in the wrong place, but to use this signage that has been purchased by the city already, install it probably by city forces still, but as I understand it, they're solar powered. Or no, are they wired into the grid? They are solar powered?
Solar.
Okay, so we don't need to do a lot of complicated things. We'll have to make sure that the push buttons for the signs, meaning that there's flashing yellow lights that go out that warn traffic, that let them know that somebody's intending to cross the street there. They have to be handicap accessible, so the buttons have to be in the right place with respect to where they might be reached by someone in a wheelchair. But that is all, it wouldn't be included in the construction contract, but it would be coordinated to get those things in right after the work by the contractor.
That's great to hear. I just want to make sure, because we're putting these beautiful sidewalks in 4 lanes of traffic is pretty tight, so. I want to make sure that there's at least a couple spots, because it's a long ways to go from McKnight all the way down to White Bear Avenue to get a light. So I'm glad there's a couple spots in between that. Thank you.
Ron, on a project like this, am I correct in assuming that before it starts, you'll go through and identify diseased and trees that need to be taken down so they can be done before we put the brand new sidewalk in?
Yes, we definitely go through and do that stuff, so.
Awesome.
Yep, make sure it's a perfect opportunity for us to do that.
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
So move. Councilmember Wong.
I'll second.
Second. Councilmember Swear. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you much. Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, really? I just got my second wind.
All right, reports from city manager and departments. PD was doing interviews today. They had a couple of, they did Zoom meetings. They had one from, I believe, North Carolina and one from North Dakota. Public Works, we unfortunately had our first water main break of the Christmas, or the winter year, I guess I should say. Up on Furnace, they took care of that. believe they've finished up your street sweeping for the second time around the city. We still are looking for a city mechanic. Unfortunately, we've had, it's been posted for, what, 6 weeks now? Is that correct? Yes. Total, yep. It's pretty tough with that, and it's starting to weigh on us a little bit, but we're still hopeful. You guys got your front-end loader for the winter season to use as the plow backup. And they're having their Department of Health is coming out for doing their well inspection, their yearly well inspection. Fire department has their maintenance for their trucks. Yeah, run. Fire department does testing on their trucks, the mechanicals of their trucks once a year, so that's in the process. Electric department has theirs. They do not only mechanical, but dielectric testing on the trucks once a year, so that's getting lined up for January. Looks like the electric department, also the frost charges are now in place for any kind of underground services that are going on. And they're also doing their yearly testing, hot stick testing for dielectric, and will be starting their inventory here pretty soon. Won't be long, the auditors will be here, so that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Reports from council, commissions, and committees. Councilmember Norby, sir.
The Planning Commission is 2 days from now, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank Eric Bana for his years of service, and that's going to be one of the topics of this Planning Commission 2 days from now.
Thank you. Councilmember Wong?
Tomorrow is the Arts and Culture Commission meeting here here at 6:30, and I think that's all.
Thank you. Councilmember Schwer.
Parks and Recreation met last month. We discussed a community garden and started contemplating where we would like it. One of the spaces is that they're visiting is the country club space for discussion, of course. We also discussed the next processes for next year, what next year looks like, so beginning that planning. We will not have a meeting in December, and again, I also would like to take the opportunity to thank Artie Alvarez for his service. He has decided not to renew for another year, or for another term. Thank you. That's it from me. The next meeting is in January 2024.
All right.
The December EDA meeting has been canceled as well, so the next EDA meeting will be in January. We do have a number of folks that will be stepping down from some pretty long tenures.
Mm-hmm.
So my assumption is sometime in the month of January, one of the 2 meetings, we will recognize all those who have served the EDA and retire and thank them for their service.
Definitely. Thank you.
Can I give you one more quick update? Initially, we were thinking that the next meeting was going to be held for the commission chairs were going to come in and give yearly updates. That's been set up for the first and second meeting in January, just to give you that update.
Great. Look forward to it. General business. Councilmember Norby.
Again, I would just like to thank Rachel for doing the North St. Paul Christmas tree project. If you don't know about it, it is one of the most wonderful things I've ever had the privilege of knowing about, and they are still looking for some donations. If the holiday spirit moves you, as far as I'm concerned, it's one of the best causes out there for local help.
Thank you. Councilmember Wong?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about our last meeting and how we had a discussion around accountability, particularly with traffic safety. And so I will continue to ask and gain clarification. So just to let you all know.
All right. Appreciate it. Councilmember Schwer.
I don't have a lot. Attended Holiday Hop with the girls this past weekend. It is a lovely event. It was beautiful outside. There were a lot of people. High desire for Santa Claus. The Grinch showed up at Max. Visited just about every business. It was great. So I encourage everyone to attend it next year. And that's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Cole?
I too went holiday hopping on Saturday. I had the opportunity to get into multiple businesses, talk to a lot of the business owners. Just a lot of good, positive momentum going on in the city. A couple of the new businesses that I stopped in at were very elated with, how their sales have been progressing. One business said that they've overachieved, or have already overachieved what their plan was, and they're looking forward
awesome.
to next year. Stopped into places I'd never been to.
Nice.
Never been to the Boys
Scout
Girl
Museum.
Scout Boys
Museum.
Club
Yeah.
Museum. I've never been in there.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Very nice.
I didn't make the Christmas ornament though. I thought I was probably out of the age limit.
I'm looking forward for the Pinewood Derby they were talking about they're going to be doing. Yeah.
Other than that, I have nothing more.
Okay, well, thank you. There was in the newsletter where the mayor was, I was ringing the bell for the Salvation Army on Saturday, so I ran into a couple of our residents, Sue Springborn and John Schmall. So I saw both of them up there when I was ringing the bell. It was a great event. It was nice to see people, and the weather was good. Last time I did that, our boys were real little, so it was kind of fun to get back out there again and do that. So I appreciate that. That was good. As you can see, we're speaking a little bit clearer tonight, and I want to thank Carrie for all she did with behind the scenes with the bad motherboard and the weight, and now it comes up to us to. And there's every one of us on our microphone says, "Speak into the mic, please," with an exclamation point. So,
Not everyone.
no, that's true. A mayor who has always said is loud. I can't believe I had one, but I'm doing better when I sit back in my chair, and I'm trying to do better at that too. And I want to apologize during our workshop, we had people from the audience again speaking as far as that. So I know that really screws up people that are listening from home. So I just wanted to apologize, and I'm going to work really hard on that because I know there's a lot of people that watch this online. So if anybody speaks, I will stop them, have them come up. So my apologies. I will do a better job of that so we can make sure everybody can hear and we get more out of the meeting. So, all right. If that's it, then we can call for adjournment.
So moved.
So move, Councilmember Wong.
Second.
Second, Councilmember Swear. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Let's get Carrie to bed.
You are